Yeah. I'm ripping, I rhyme. I rhyme and I spit. That's the way Sports Reports has ordered. I couldn't even get it all the way out. So I guess I'll just start it off with a little yes. You are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports' order. And tonight, we're going to ask some questions. We might not like each other's answers, but, we'll see where the conversation goes.
Those are the best kind of conversations.
Just follow the flow. And then, as you can see by the title of the episode, we got to talk about a Buncha Bull. But let me do the right thing here and let y'all know that across the screen from me is the one and only, the even-killed, VA born, representing New Jerusalem all the way to T-Neck and Billville.
You're
Air Force veteran.
Absolutely. 100%.
Man of many words and man of his word. He is Mr. Logic. And I am off the chain, unorthodox, as we used to say back in the day, off the beat rap. You know what I'm saying? With a little bit of that. Well, I can't say that on the air, so I'm gonna just go with I'm 2'5", y'all. Welcome. Thanks for the support. Like, subscribe, share. Let grandma know that we live. But if she might be asleep already, tell her to check us out in the morning. But we're going to start this thing off with get it off my chest. So, get it off my chest. I told you it doesn't always have to be negative. Doesn't mean that it's positive. Sometimes it just is. So, correct. I just want to join in on the fun. Everybody's excited that NCAA football is coming back. And I'm excited too. I can't wait to start that dynasty with Akron. You know what I'm saying? And act like, because you got to act, right? We're going to have NIL, so I got to act like LeBron James is my donor. You know what I'm saying? To get players to come to Akron, creating our own storylines and everything. I'm so excited, but I got one question. Since Ed O'Bannon started this whole thing, when we going to get a college basketball game? Because I know that you know that NCAA Basketball 2K8 is one of the best basketball video games that has ever existed. We can still play it to this day, updating those rosters. We shout out to everybody on Operation Sports that does that for us. I know it wasn't making a lot of money, but here's the thing. EA Sports has the exclusive license. The last NCAA basketball game they made was 2010, so it came out in 2009. So I would hope that 15 years without a college basketball game, you might see a little surplus if you create a new one. So do some of us a favor, because if you look at that calendar, you will see the madness is here. But it would mean a little bit more if I could play it on a video game.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about this earlier at our pre-meeting. I didn't really get into the basketball games. When I was playing video games, it was Madden, NCAA, and I would sprinkle in a couple other random games here and there. For the most part, I was a Madden guy, and I played Madden every year. I bought as you say, the roster update. But I was an NBA Live guy back in the day. So the basketball games legit. People love 2K. Like my son used to spend a bunch of money on VC, pumping his character up and playing all the time. So maybe it's time for it. Yeah, like you said, Ed O'Bannon started the lawsuit. So I don't know why. Maybe that's why, because he started the lawsuit. They don't want to have to pay him.
You know what I'm saying? Forgive him for him not knowing what he did.
But that's typical when it comes to college sports, which leads me right to my get off my chest. It's a shout out. It's a shout out to a guy that it seems like he might have gotten hold of one of our episodes because he sounded like he quoted something that I said in an episode way back about the coaches complained about the NIL. Like, yo, just do better. Do better. So shout out to Arizona State University coach Kenny Dillingham. He said, listen, if you can't handle the new NIL and recruiting and the new process, just quit. He was like, it's plenty of people who are blessed to be in a position to be an assistant coach, a coordinator, a trainer, or a head coach, like a position I've been trying to get for years. And I finally got to this position. Granted, like they didn't have a great year last year. They were 3-9 as, Sun Devils, but they're in a great campus, great school, great state. I think that'll turn around. He has the right attitude for is like, listen, you have to adapt and overcome. We talked about coaches like Jay Harris out of Villanova, suspected that Nick Saban's retirement was kind of predicated on the fact that he didn't want to have to deal with the NIL. Dabo Sweeney talking about he didn't want to deal with the transfer portal and all these other rules. He was like, listen, you're in a position to do a very tough job, but it could be a fun job because you are coaching a game professionally. So, and that's his aspect, his outlook on it is like, listen, not that many people have these jobs. A lot of people go into regular 9-to-5 jobs that will love to be a coach, love to be an assistant. And they're like, you have it. So you just adopt this new philosophy, figure out how to get this NIL money. And he was like, in our organizations, we've gotten more donors, it's made us more active, it's made us, kind of alter our recruiting process because it's a new thing. So adapt to the changing ways, adapt to the flow of your organization, adapt to the structure, and just be better at recruiting. Be better at keeping your players. Yeah, if the third string running back wants $600,000 to stay, more likely you won't be able to do it. But if you're good enough recruiter, you can go get the next guy, the next 3, 4, 5-star guy to replace him because you think a guy who's giving you third string action, asking for that much money is a little ridiculous. Right. That doesn't mean you have to quit. That just means, okay, I got to get back to the drum board. I got to get back on my game to make sure I do the best for my school. So shout out once again, Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State University. I'm rooting for you now that Utah's in the Big 12, so we're good to go.
So there's a couple of things that I like about Kenny Dillingham. Of course, he became Arizona State's head coach. He's an Arizona kid. He went to ASU and everything. And he came off of the staff at Oregon. He was the offensive coordinator out at Oregon. So he came from the Phil Knight money. He saw how that works. Dan Lanning running the program now. And he got Jaden Rashada as his quarterback. You remember him? He was the one that tried to hold up Florida for $13 million. So, I got to look and see what he ended up with. But, that's not a bad start. 3-9. I remember they had Shador, trolling them last year, at the end of the game, 3-point game against a 3-9 team. But, hey, go off, young man. But, it is what it is. But let's move on. So, Mr. Logical, I promised you that I had a question for you.
I'm ready.
Saying this is not a gotcha. I just want to see what you guess because I would have probably guessed something different than what I found. So, obviously last night, Kevin Durant, congratulations, passed Carmelo Anthony to become the 9th leading scorer in NBA history. Where is Steph Curry ranked on that list?
Steph Curry all-time scoring list.
Yes.
So, if I just take all the threes he hit.
Same thing I'd said. It got me no closer to correct.
That's like nearly 11,000 points. And he doesn't shoot that many. I'm going to give him, you said KD's at 9.
Yes.
24?
That's the exact number that I guessed. That's the exact number that I guessed. He's 38.
Really?
It blew my mind.
He needs to get some more layups. He needs to get a layup package or something.
He has had some injuries. He came in with the bad ankles. I think
I don't recall him
2 years ago.
with the hand, but KD's missed a couple seasons recently. Like he missed with the Achilles.
But you
and
got
then
to remember,
those years
KD came in scoring though.
Yeah, but he missed a couple of seasons worth of games in OKC. I think he had like a 40, like 1 year he missed 30 or 40 games, and another year he missed
the whole year in Brooklyn.
Because we did the math when LeBron was breaking the Kareem record, and we were looking at the averages, and I was like, if KD didn't miss, I think it was close, like 2.5 seasons worth of games. We did that math because he missed the full first season with Brooklyn.
Yeah, like we thought that he would have been really in range to catch LeBron. So
he would. Yeah, he'd have been close to fifth right now.
So the good news is he's 300 points behind Shaq. So so he should pass Shaq before the end of the season. Provided he doesn't miss any games. He is right behind. Shaq is only 900 points or so behind Moses Malone, so Durant should probably catch him.
That looks like next year.
Yeah, and then Dr. J is not that far ahead of Moses Malone. So this is my question. This is my next question. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who is now 5th all time in scoring, is sitting at 32,292. Durant is at 28,296. Does Durant pass Jordan?
You figure...
I figure 2,000 points is a good season.
2,000 points, I think, is a good NBA season for a primary scorer. So he would have to play out another foot. We got a third of the season left right now.
Yeah, we got like 27 games or so.
27 games. So that's probably 600 to 650 points, maybe.
It just depends on what they need for seeding,
yeah. So we figure you give them 650 points. That gives them 3,400, 3,300 starting next season. He would have to play all of next season and the following season to pass Jordan. But really passing Jordan at this point, it doesn't have the same kind of doesn't have the same kind of ring because he's 5th.
Right.
And Kobe already passed him, a guy that I wouldn't say people compared KD and Kobe, but like that whole young star leading the team to the championship. And then LeBron is going to be over 40,000. So passing that guy at 32,000, getting to 33,000 points won't look the same when another guy's at 41.
Yeah. So before we get into our topic here, just for giggles, other notable active players. James Harden is at 25. Russell Westbrook is at 29. We said Steph is at 38. DeMar DeRozan at 40. Chris Paul at 42. And Damian Lillard at 50. So, those are some odds. I mean, none of those guys are probably going to get up that high. But we'll follow
these guys are going to get these two or three more years, $45 to $55 million per. None of these guys are playing like 20 years.
Yeah.
Is what you're going to need because of the load management and the amount of games they play and the science of how many days they take off. And so. All
right. Sorry. But so the question that I wanted to get to is I need Mr. Logical's help because I don't even know where to put Kevin Durant in my all-time rankings.
The problem is you're going to run out of space. The top 10, these guys, so many guys in the top 10 are legends. And it's like this mystique surrounding them. It's going to be hard for you to justify a top 10 without Larry Bird in it. A top 10 without Shaq in it. A top 10 without Magic Johnson in your top 4. So you're just going to run out of space, even though these numbers are going to be crazy and what Durant ends up doing, ninth in scoring. But he passed Carmelo. Carmelo was never going to be in that top 10 all time. So him passing Carmelo isn't like a feather in his cap.
Right. I mean, he does pass Shaq next.
He passes Shaq, but Shaq was the most dominant player on the three-peat. Kevin Durant was a very, 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 very outstanding player on a very, very, very packed, stacked team.
So if you look at so without context, because of course context is a different conversation. Without context, if you look at his resume, he's got MVP, he's got scoring titles, he has 2 final MVPs. It sounds nuts that we're even having this conversation. But then when you add the context to it of how he got those 2 titles, the 2 finals MVPs, it becomes completely different because I've always said it. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I'm going to say it again. The Warriors, I ain't going to call them that word I called them last time, but they're the ones that called Kevin Durant. He took the brunt of the blame. He took the brunt of being called, even by me, I called him a coward. I call him, I literally K lowercase OWAR capital D. KD coward, right in the middle. Cupcake and all that kind of stuff like that. He got all the blame for it, even though the Warriors were the champions.
The quarters. They courted him.
Yeah, who had just went 73-9, blew a 3-1 lead, crying in the parking lot. They called this man to meet them up in the Hamptons. Wined and dined him as if he was Holly Berry or Salma Hayek or something.
I cannot believe. Do y'all know how far the Hamptons are from San Francisco? Like, even after you land in Newark, JFK, or LaGuardia, you still got to get all the way out on Long Island. That's another little trick. That's almost half.
It
was so long to do that, and it's like.
And what's funny is they became known as like the Hampton Five after that. You know what I mean?
They probably took a helicopter. They probably were like a $5 million cottage eating caviar.
They bought lobster the whole weekend.
They probably bought them like a Rich and Millie or watch or something like that, like to try to ice the deal. KD, okay. The thing that Katie said it this week, Katie got a bad rap because, first of all, like I said, I didn't like the move mainly because he was down. He was up 3-1 on his team, lost it, lost to them and then joined them. So it's like you blow a historic lead to a team that had won 73 games. And at that point, I think the argument was he top 3 or 4 in the NBA? Some people had him second behind LeBron.
Some people had him ahead of LeBron.
Those people really don't know basketball. They just don't like LeBron. I'm not trying to be mean. It's like at no point was he better than LeBron. In that year 2016.
Yeah, outside of like.
He was not better than LeBron.
Shooting, maybe like that's.
But LeBron averaged 27 and 28 points, and KD went bananas. But like at that point, LeBron had been to like 6 or 7 finals or something, or some crazy number.
Yeah.
So I didn't like the move. He got a bum rap in the media, but he said himself, I don't really have a personality to really combat the media. So I just didn't care. LeBron tried to embrace that villain role that first year in Miami because everyone jumped down on him for making that move down to Miami, and it didn't work. It affected his play, and he said it as much. He was like, I don't like to not be liked, and most people don't. So to go out there with this unnecessary chip on your shoulder versus like joy in your game. And I think KD just was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this because no one is ever going to give me any credit. But then I think after he was so dominant as an individual in those finals, I think he thought that should be enough. But everybody else attached the fact that was like, oh, you went to a ready-made team that
had already won.
They should have beat Cleveland.
Yeah.
Draymond doesn't throw the little backhand punch at his nutsack, and they go back to back.
Yeah, if Harrison Barnes goes 4 for 12 instead of 2 for 12.
If he hits anything, if he pump fakes and just gets a layup, they win.
Right.
Like they would have won. but
Right.
he was like
And that was my
Antarctica.
thing. Like, even if they wanted to upgrade Harrison Barnes, they obviously they pulled out a bazooka basically.
If Golden State would have just dominated the whole West and then went out and recruited Durant and they wanted to be like Voltron or something like this ultra Megatron like type of team, then they would have been collectively the villain. But the fact that they lost and KD went to them, it made KD the villain because I think he never really used his personality to like be jovial, be like he wasn't like LeBron, he wasn't like Dwayne Wade where he was like smiling and likable. He didn't really have the story of like Derrick Rose where people just rooted for him to be successful. I think people looked at him as so gifted that he should have played better, and he wasn't getting any criticism really because we talked about it that year. You and I on a telephone conversation, we talked about how I felt like he was getting the pass from the media, and then he jumps literally right into the fire.
Yeah, he was like, "You don't want to give me the smoke, you got to give me the smoke."
Because now you got to give me the attention that I think I deserve. So and he knew he was going to be on. He was going to be on the final stage.
Yeah, because there's a lot of tradition in trying to figure out who's next. Like, there was a point where people thought Michael Jordan couldn't win a title because they thought he was selfish and didn't pass enough. So, he obviously got over that hump. And I'm sure before that, they probably thought the Pistons couldn't win because they kept running into the Celtics. So then, so MJ got his titles. We were like, what's going to happen? The Rockets won. So we're like, okay, MJ's back. Can the Rockets they didn't get back again. So then Jordan leaves again because, he's got this thing. He quits a lot. And so after he left the second time, it was like, okay, the Knicks can finally win the title. Except for they didn't. Spurs came through. Lakers came through. They win. Can Kobe win without Shaq? Can the Suns win without playing any defense? LeBron, it's your turn. And then after LeBron got his championship, the natural order to me was, all right, KD, you're on the clock. You know what I mean? And that didn't happen. He goes to Golden State. And then, somehow we ended up on Giannis before Giannis was actually Giannis. So he skipped all of that, but then pulled it back onto himself. So as I was thinking about this, I came up with, I didn't do a list, but I was like maybe top 20, like somewhere from 20 to 23-ish, because like you said, there's some people that he just can't go ahead of.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So I'm already fleshing out a 10 right there. And then I got to factor in people like Isaiah Thomas. I got to factor in people that I didn't put in my top 10 that the older generation probably has in their top 10, like the Bill Russells, the people that came before Jordan even.
Putting him in, there's going to be people that argue that Giannis is going to be higher because he was the centerpiece of the team, didn't leave. Granted, your team has to be good around you, no matter how good you are as an individual.
Right.
But the fact that he stayed, he didn't go join conglomerate of players.
Off the top of my head, there's two superstars.
You can't put him above Steph.
Off the top of my head, there's two superstars that I feel won with they had help obviously because they won, but they didn't have your typical help. And that was Dirk in 2011, even though I feel that Jason Terry was the finals MVP, but nobody's looking at Jason Terry as an all-time great player, and then
they just had a great casserole of
and
players.
Chemistry. They knew their roles.
They put it was like a great etouffee or something like that. It just was like perfectly cooked. And it's just like this, we're going to serve everybody. They had one of the greatest runs ever.
Right. The greatest run to me when you consider the
Kobe,
icons that they beat.
They beat Kobe,
Duncan.
They beat Duncan, Harden, Durant, and Westbrook. Granted, they were young,
and Wade.
But all three of them got MVPs, and then they beat LeBron and D Wade, who were both end up Finals MVPs. So yeah,
and the other person is Hakeem Olajuwon. You know what I mean? But a lot of people put the asterisk by his title because Y'all
Jordan
mad at
left.
him because Jordan quit. No, he didn't leave. He quit. You know what I'm saying?
He had to take a break, man.
Yeah, okay.
Mental awareness, mental health.
Cool. But anyway,
Still came back and three-peated.
So I don't know. Yeah, he had those fresh legs. But anyway, I didn't know what to do with. I don't know what to do with Durant. But he's not the only player that I don't know what to do with. So, like, Mr. Logical has heard me say this before, so I apologize in advance. A lot of y'all haven't heard me say this, so I'm just going to go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. Michael Vick, Allen Iverson, Tupac.
Virginia.
All great at what they did in a lot of respects. Very flawed in a lot of respects. But we overrate the hell out of all three of them because we like them. You know, Michael Vick and Allen Iverson represented the culture in sports in a way that we weren't seeing before. And I mean, David Stern even came out with the dress code to shut down
AI.
You know what I mean? And
it's the influence.
It's the influence more than it was the actual.
But that's the thing.
Stuff.
I don't think people argue the accolades and the outputs of those three men that you mentioned versus talk about their impact and how influential they were. I don't know where Vic's passing yards are, but I know that there wasn't a lot of quarterbacks that ran 4.2, 4.1s, 4.2s, 4.3s that were getting drafted number one overall. There was guys that they would draft, like, I mean, you got a guy like Antoine Randall. He was a quarterback in Indiana in college. And he's probably pretty quick, but they knew off the rip that they were going to make him a wide receiver.
22,000.
Vic was only 6. I think Vic was listed as 6'1", 6'1.5". So he's probably closer to 6 foot. Iverson was the same way. He was listed as 6 foot, 6'1". He probably closer to 5'11", 5'10", 5'11".
He was probably Dwight Young size.
Pac wasn't as lyrical as Hove or as great of a storyteller lyrically as Biggie, but impact, influence is, I think that's why people are elevated. They elevated those guys and will argue that their impact was greater because of their influence, not necessarily because of the accolades.
Right.
So it's not necessarily overrated. It's just that the value that the pie, like the pie chart, the Venn diagram, so to speak, of touchdowns, touchdown passes, 3-point shots, 3-point percentage, wins, all of that. But it's like literally they changed how players were allowed to show up to work because of his influence. There's a picture, you could Google it right now. It's like the White Iverson kid. It's a white kid in Philly with the Iverson jersey on. He's probably like maybe 11 or 12 with the drawn on tattoos, cornrows with the headband. You could Google it right now and find it. It shows like how impactful Iverson was, where you had like Philadelphia white suburban kids showing up to his game with wristbands and drawn on tattoos.
And I don't deny any of that.
That was his influence. Yeah,
I respect all of that. But you know what I'm saying? But like I've heard people say Allen Iverson is like a top 15 all time. You know, I've heard him say he's top 20 all time. And I'm trying to figure out if any other player had 11 seasons shooting 42% or lower while shooting like 28 shots a game during some seasons, 24 in others. I don't think we would be saying that they're this and that. Like, I know he had the year in Philly where he took the team to the NBA Finals that we underrate because they had the coach of the year, they had the defensive player of the year, they had the sixth man of the year. You know, they got some referee help in Game 7 against Milwaukee. You know, they got to the finals. They took a game off the Lakers.
When you play in skill, good luck will happen. True.
You know, they took a game off Kobe and Shaq. The only loss Kobe and Shaq had in that whole playoff run. But that's
the thing. But no one cares about the 4 games that the Lakers won, and the Lakers are an iconic franchise with 2 icons on the floor, icon on the bench. They care about him stepping over Tyronn Lue. That's the Iverson effect, and that's why people have him top 20. Like I said, you'll look at the numbers because
well, not just the numbers. It's not just the numbers. Like I said, after that finals, it was pretty nondescript up until he went to Denver. Ended up with Carmelo. They made a Western Conference Finals. They lost to the Lakers, and that was the thing. He ran into Kobe. Sometimes you run into people and you beat them. Sometimes if you're what we say you are, you win a series or you win a game or whatever the case may be. And then after that, the career just kind of fell apart after Denver, and he was on his way out.
And he's famous, and it's people have famous stories of them talking about Iverson literally not shooting the basketball all summer, coming in, doing a couple of quick quad stretches, taking 2 jump shots, and starting training camp.
And maybe if he would be in my top 20.
He didn't lift any weights. He
just like Michael didn't read any or watch any film.
Didn't watch any film, and that's the thing is I understand that if you want to make a top 20, top 25 argument, that you're going to have to take these things into account. But I don't know if anybody who makes any of these arguments actually has any numbers. I'm thinking most people go completely off just influence, what I saw.
Right.
Because Dominique Wilkins' numbers might be outstanding, but no one talks about his numbers. We know Jordan with the 32,000 points. We know Kobe with the 81-point game, with the 100-point game, Jordan with the 6 rings, Pippen with the 6 rings.
And we know about Dominique with the 47 against Boston. He just he had people like, hey, how's this? He had people like Doc Rivers with him.
Yeah, so we got Larry Bird and his 3 championships and the dream. So all of this information is out there, but people don't have all of this information.
So what do I do
with all these guys? Like we said in the pre-meeting, what D Wade did was he earned championship finals MVP with an older Gary Payton, an older Shaq, Pat Riley, in the midst of Kobe in the league, LeBron's in the league, Dwight Howard's in the league, Paul Pierce is in the league, KG's in the league. So all these guys that got drafted in these that 96 class and that 03 class, all these guys were in their prime, and Dwayne Wade took the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals and won Finals MVP. And then, obviously, LeBron came down to Miami. They went on another run where he got 4 more finals appearances, 2 more rings. So it gives him 3 and 2 in the finals.
And outside of that year before LeBron showed up, he was looking real T-Mac-ish.
That's the thing. Most of these guys would have ended. All of these guys who got rings from 2000, post Kobe and Shaq, until today, most of these guys ended up shipping in their championship help.
Right.
Like somebody came in. Like Boston right now would probably be the only team that I can think off the top of my head. Early Golden State, I think they were like homegrown. They brought in Iggy and some other role players, but their stars were drafted at home.
Right.
Boston stars are drafted at home. The Warriors kind of lose a little bit of that flair because they brought in KD for 3 years and made 3 NBA finals with him after they already made 2 with their homegrown core. So it kind of it overshadows their own development. Whereas Boston goes to the finals with that crew again and wins it. It's like they drafted these guys, they developed these guys, they paid these guys, and they put pieces around. For the most part, everybody else kind of
yeah, and we're talking about early Boston. Obviously, we're not talking about KG and those guys.
Yeah, those guys, they brought people in for their chip. Dallas, like I said, Dallas had Dirk, that run that they had against LeBron.
Like, just think, he didn't even win the title or wasn't even a contender with Steve Nash and Michael Finley.
So you bring in an older J Kid, Jason Terry, Rick Carlisle, and it just works. But for the most part, most of these teams, short of Giannis, I don't really think he brought in a free agent that was bigger than him or on par with him. The way they brought in Dame Lillard this year. I don't know how that's going to work out, but he didn't do that the year he won his chip.
Right. And then Clyde Drexler? Like, I always feel disrespect when people give their two-guard list.
And he's
But I
not
just
on
don't.
it.
Yeah, and I just don't know if he should be or if he shouldn't be because
You gotta keep in mind, like, what we saw yesterday is the greatest thing that happened. This is the generation we live in. What we saw happen in HD is what we know. Clyde Drexler, I don't know if he's been on TV, and I haven't seen him talk at all.
I saw him on The Last Dance. That was about it. And yeah, I think he was on like when they do the top 70, when they did the top 75, like he was on there.
I haven't in all of these Zooms and these podcasts and all of these you can have this conversation from home. I don't recall seeing Clyde Drexler anywhere.
Yeah, James Worthy always saying some crazy shit.
And that's part of it. Scottie Pippen hasn't stopped talking since 2012.
Yeah, we gonna get to him too.
Yeah, so like certain guys are just always like certain guys, like even Dominique for an effect, but Dominique judges the dunk contest. So at least you see him and his name comes up in conversation quite often. They show replays of his dunk. Clyde Drexler did the dunk contest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's ever judged one. And
Clyde Drexler has a Western Conference Finals win over the Showtime Lakers. You know, he lost in the finals twice to Detroit Pistons and to Michael Jordan. Then he got traded to Houston mid-season when they were falling into dumps and helped them win their second championship. So, like, he has been through the rigors. And this is where, like I said, you know, I say this a lot. I get confused because in some areas we're like, but they made the conference finals. But they made it to the finals. But then when people like Clyde Drexler, we're like, nah, man, like,
because because this arbitrary conversation about GOAT and legacies, most of these guys from 11 to 25, people feel like they're appropriately placed. So if you say you got Dr. J at 12, no one's gonna be like, oh, you gotta have Dr. J at 6. It just, but if you said you got Kobe at some of the old heads will, but if you say you got Kobe at 12 or 13, then it's a conversation.
Yeah, it's fighting words right there.
If you got Shaq at 15, like what's the boy name? Mad Mike or on First Take. He has Shaq.
Oh, Mad Dog.
Mad Dog. He had Shaq at his 5th best center.
That's wild.
And Stephen A went nuts.
I got Shaq at the second best center.
He had him behind Hakeem, Moses Malone,
or actually third,
Kareem. Did he have him behind David Robinson? No, I think he had Tim Duncan on there, and they're like, Tim Duncan's a power forward. But yeah, he had Shaq 5th.
Yeah, I got Shaq behind Kareem and Olajuwon.
Jason Williams has Kobe. He has Kobe. He said it in a little podcast, same thing. He was like, he said he didn't have Kobe as a top 5 Laker.
Yeah, that's just wild.
So it's like, it's so arbitrary. But if you're not one of those guys that kind of gets debated all the time, then wherever you pop up on the list, like if someone said Clyde Drexler was 16th in scoring all the time, you'd be like, all right, that's cool. You wouldn't be like, oh, he should have scored more points than that.
Right.
But if Dwayne Wade, wherever Dwayne Wade is on the list, is going to be like, he only scored that many points because he's part of these different conversations. That's all it is. There's no real rhyme or reason. There's no real rhyme or reason to it other than these arbitrary conversations that we have in these podcasts and our group chats and our text messages and around the water cooler at work. If you still report to a building, the names that we remember are guys that are doing other stuff now, guys that are big in Instagram, guys that are on reality shows, maybe guys who marry celebrity women. So it's like guys who are announcing games. Draymond's going to be one of those guys that people talk about a lot after his career is over because he's going to go straight from the court to the booth.
Right.
Barkley, I don't know how long Barkley's been at TNT, but his career wasn't like crazy. He won the MVP one year, but it was like during the time where people felt like Jordan could have won every single one.
You know, yeah. So when he retired, Clyde Drexler was one of only 3 players that had 20,000 points, 6,000 assists, and 6,000 rebounds.
And now you have guys that do all, like you have guys who basically do all of that. Like,
right. So it's forgotten about, or like, like you said, the best thing that happened yesterday. So it's like, yeah, we saw that old dude play and like, XYZ. And the first thing that I think that people think when you say Clyde Drexler is
the Portland Jordan 7 threes, not Clyde Drexler 7 threes.
Yeah,
because when he did the shrug, I think Drexler was in. I think Drexler was in the shot when he did the shrug.
Yeah,
it was either him or like Duckworth. Somebody was in the frame when Jordan did the shrug.
Right. Yeah, so that's his problem, But like, obviously, like when we're looking at how basketball has evolved, like I have to put somebody like a James Harden ahead of him probably, just because of like the responsibility that James Harden had outside of scoring. He was like everything for, like in that LeBron way where he was like everything for his team. I have to take that into consideration. So even though I may not necessarily think that he's that much better than Clyde Drexler, like where you could have a conversation, when I take that into account, I have to give him the nod.
I think it might be, I know about the mixed sports, but that whole, how we were talking about the Hall of Fame. Yes, Eli Manning has 15,000 more yards than Dan Fouts, but it's a completely different era. Dan Fouts is a Hall of Famer. Eli, to me, isn't, but he's probably going to get in. It might be one of those situations where guys now, because the responsibilities flow essentially through a couple of guys, because you got to keep in mind, like, remember the Knicks, they had Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason. Those are two of the same player. Like, they give you the exact same thing. The Davis brothers and granted they weren't brothers in Indiana. Those two guys are the same thing. Like, they give you the same thing. We got Carl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert on the floor after the trade happened, and people were like, how are you going to make this work with 2 7-footers? It's like, you got two dudes.
Like, we go grab all the rebounds and block the shot.
Block all the shots. It's like, why is it so difficult? But the standard back in the day was like, imagine if you had 2 7-footers and one of them could shoot 18 feet. You'd be the happiest person on earth if you're a coach. But for some reason, all the punters are like, how is this going to work? They're going to clog up the lane. No, they're not.
Yeah,
one
like
imagine just not be there. One of you go stand right here. Stand 18 feet from the hoop. Just get the hell out of the way. So back in the day, they just literally had guys that just did that. You had point guards that did not shoot. Like, it was point guards. I'm pretty sure Mark Jackson probably could shoot, but his whole design out there was to get the ball distributed.
Right.
John Starks, get it to Patrick Ewing. John Stockton has 17,000 career assists. No one's going to catch him. No one talks about him as one of the greatest point guards when that's literally the job you're supposed to do. But because of the context of the conversations, we would put James Harden up there because he has X amount of assists and he led the league in assists this many years. Well, back in the day, he wouldn't have the ball in his hand for 16 seconds out of the 24-second shot clock.
Right.
So I think you got to put that in consideration that Drexler didn't get 27 shots a game and 14 of them from 3. So having him ahead of James Harden makes complete sense to me because in James Harden's era, where this is the framework of how you guys play, how have you performed in this ball of time?
Right.
I think these guys, these other era guys, you can say, hey, I think LeBron performed better in his window of time than James Worthy did in his window of time, so I can move him ahead of them. But I don't think Russell Westbrook performed better in his window of time than Clyde Drexler did.
So
on the all-time list, and I think you can kind of go with that for KD as well, because it's like, have you outperformed your peers in your window to the point where I can put you ahead of other people who have documented that, how well they performed in their time.
All right, final question before we move on. Just yes or no. Russell Westbrook higher all time than Allen Iverson?
No.
Okay. Okay. We'll come back to that one day.
You already know where I'm from.
But anyway, so Buncha Bull going on. Horace Grant, Luke Longley, Scottie Pippen are on a tour apparently to rebut. Is that a word? Rebut. To give a rebuttal of The Last Dance. What say you?
So I saw this in another sports group that I'm in, and I've been real big on saying this a lot, and you can clip this. I'm sick of you men out here getting on the internet, whining all the fucking time. Cut it out. I understand that men's mental health is important. I have a note from my therapist that I used to go see pinned to my door. So when I walk out, I see it's a reminder. I understand that. But I don't go bitching and complaining to my coworkers, my boss, my woman. I don't do any of that stuff. I deal with these things as they come. So, with that being said, I had to look straight to the camera for that. I posted in one of these chats. I'm like, look, I'm sick of men, especially older men, just going out here, just getting on TV, just whining. And I was like, on top of that, it's like, I don't think The Last Dance changed how people viewed Pippen, Longley, or Horace Grant. I don't think people had Pippen as a all-time great. Watched The Last Dance and said, "Oh, he's not all-time great." I don't think people ever viewed Horace Grant with any opinion, honestly, post his career. And I know for damn sure no one talked about Luke Longley for any reason. So it's like, what record are you getting straight? No one changed their opinion on you based off The Last Dance. So if you didn't like it when they were interviewing you for The Last Dance, or they were making these calls to see who wanted to participate, you should have participated then. You should have said your piece. When they asked Carl Malone how he felt about all these games, he gave very short, poignant answers like, "So you stole the ball. So what? What do you want me to say?" Like, he lets you know, like, listen, yeah, whatever. You guys gonna talk about Jordan. I don't give a damn. They won. It is what it is. He was very clear. He's not going out here having a tour talking about how it was really a foul and all. It is what it is. So I'm just curious of like, what opinion are they trying to change? Unless they're gonna drop some kind of bombshell about Jordan, like cheating or steroids or
Sodomy.
anything like that. Unless they're gonna present that information, it's like, what are you talking about? Because you're not gonna say anything that's gonna soil your championships. Nor will you say, if you said Jordan was an asshole. We have no. I know people who weren't in the NBA. I know a guy who works at the airport in Salt Lake City, and 12 years ago, we were sitting at work, and he told me, "Yeah, Jordan's an asshole. Like, his private jet lands. He doesn't talk to anybody. He just walks through. Like, if you ask for an autograph, he just ignores you." And then you got the Chameleonaire story where Jordan said he wouldn't sign him jerseys because give me some money or bring me some women or something. I'm not signing these autographs. We all have he slapped Steve Kerr in practice. We have all the Jordans and asshole stories.
Draymond did that, didn't he?
He just sucker punched Jordan Poole. He knocked the basketball out of him like the monster.
Oh, congrats, Steve Kerr, by the way. He signed that record 2-year, $35 million extension.
Yeah, I'm just mad because he named his son Nick. But
so
yeah, the tour, and it's starting in Australia, so it's like,
all right. So look,
why?
So look. I was trying to think about how I felt about this.
You got to go 2-5 on this, please.
Initially, I said, man, I would really love to hear from Ron Harper and Craig Hodges. Because I remember Craig Hodges had the issues, with racism in America and everything. He wrote the letter to the president and everything. He went to MJ, was like in Magic, allegedly before game 1 of their final series in 91, and was like, yo, let's boycott. And like, they were like, Yo, what you talking about, man? And then we didn't really see Craig Hodges very much down the line, even though he was winning the 3-point contest back to back and all that kind of stuff. Ron Harper, I just think is an entertaining dude. I love to hear him talk. So, and I'm not making fun of him, but I just like to hear him talk. So, but when I was thinking about this, I said, you know what, man? Who am I to tell somebody that you can't defend your name? If you feel that this man has besmirched you, you know what I'm saying? But this is the problem. This is the problem and why I couldn't fully get there. Because Scottie Pippen had one chance. All he had to say was, look, I'm a competitor. I wanted to take that shot. Tony obviously was the right decision in that moment to take that shot. What Scottie said was, I'd sit out again. So as much of an asshole that Jordan is, a lot of times he's an asshole in the form of competitiveness. You were an asshole in the sense of quitting on your team because you didn't get your way. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, that's point number one. Point number two, Luke Longley, this man never averaged 9 points a game and averaged 5 rebounds once at 7'2". You think I care what he got to say? I'd rather listen to Roy Hibbert. You know what I'm saying? Then you got Horace Grant. You left the Bulls. And when he played for the Magic, you got your revenge by eliminating Jordan the next year. Or, when he came back, the year that he came back, you
correct.
You eliminated Jordan. You said your piece in that series. Now, granted, he came back.
I don't even know what was said about him during the Last Dance. I don't.
They did talk about Horace. I don't think it wasn't a very long time, but there were inferences of him being soft and all that kind of stuff. Which the old school, you don't do that.
Well, this is kind of showing that maybe that was a little accurate. Maybe the truth is very close to home. Like I said, I was telling you earlier, I was playing Madden with a last night, and this guy he was talking through the speaker, and I could hear it through the TV, and I'm like, "Yo, just shut up! I'm just trying to play this game." So he was beating me. It's about the end of the game, so I'm like, you know what? I got time. I'm off tomorrow. I plugged in my headset. So when he thought he had the upper hand because he was talking slick to me or whatever, and I got on, I was like, "Yo, you sound real childish, right? You don't sound like a person of a maturity." And he was like, "Oh, you sound like an old man that probably works a 9 to 5, yada yada." I'm like, "Funny you say that. It's the fact that you can understand that I'm definitely older, just strictly from my voice and the way I talk and my tone lets you know that I'm at a level of maturity that you aren't at yet." And then he started yelling and cussing. See, now you even sound more childish. And I'm thinking that you must know you are childish. He's like, "I'm a freshman." I'm like, "Really? You just said you were going out drinking." He's like, "I'm going to go out drinking with my buddies." I'm like, "So?" He's like, "Oh, I guess you're from one of those towns where no one drank in high school." I'm like, "You're not a freshman. You're just childish." You're just childish. He's like, "I make $28 welding as a freshman." I'm like, "So you're a freshman in high school and you going out drinking?" I guess I'm. And I was like, just stop, man. Don't sound childish. And we won't have these kind of conversations. You won the game. Congrats. You work these little digital men.
Hopefully the tour is successful, but I have my doubts though, because Scottie got.
What are you gonna hear? What are you gonna hear? What could they say that they have to say something that
Scottie got to be "Yo, Jordan got my wife before Future did."
They have to say something that's going to ruin the legacy, which subsequently ruin their legacy, which will ruin the only reason that we are even having this conversation is because they were attached to that legacy. So it's what are you going to do? It's like me talking shit about you, about the podcast, knowing the only reason I have this podcast is because I'm working with you. So
where BJ Armstrong at? Where BJ Armstrong at? He ain't got no grievances. Where's Bill Whittington? I want to hear Bill Cartwright because
these guys are all All these guys were in the documentary, and it was
Bill Cartwright
4
is the
years
one
ago.
dude. Bill
It
Cartwright
is
is the one dude that I ever heard of making MJ back down. Like, let's tell that story. The one guy that made MJ back up.
I like these NBA player podcasts, like especially Jeff Teague. He's telling like these funny stories. I like Paul George's podcast. I just wish that he wasn't an active player.
Right.
You know, like in the part of his career where I think his team is good enough to win the West or good enough to compete. You know, there are 1 or 2 or 3 teams that could probably win the West. So it does feel like basketball is he's setting up basketball to be an afterthought. And these guys are retired. You could do whatever you want with your time. I'm not knocking them for their time. I'm just not sure what record are they setting straight. Is he just going to come out there and say, I'm not soft?
I mean, is
Like, I
Scottie
mean,
Pippen
like,
gonna is Scottie Pippen gonna act like is Scottie Pippen gonna act like he was the catalyst? I mean, granted, he
he
played
was
a
in
major role.
he was in every episode of The Last Dance. He was in every championship. He got 6. He is the anti-Jordan coat trump card piece when people argue why Jordan isn't great. It's because he didn't win until Scottie got there. It's like, I don't know how much more you really want.
Right.
Like, unless you want credit saying that you were better than Jordan, that's fine. Then you had opportunities when he wasn't in the league, the 2-year gap where he was gone, or
yeah, we talked about
the one season,
they won 55 games. Everybody did their thing, their dance. MJ ain't that great. Then they came back the next year. They go 34-31. He's got his shoe up, waving at Mike to come back. And Mike comes back. They go 13-4 in his return to finish with 47 wins. They lose in the second round to Orlando, and then Nick Anderson with the steal, and then the next year they come back, and then the show is moving again. So yes, and let me just say this one thing, because I know people got to stop saying that Scottie Pippen took them to the Eastern Conference Finals. That was the second round that they lost in.
I've never heard anyone say. I just
that's all I hear is that Pippen took them to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I haven't heard that argument, but I haven't really been involved in a lot of Pippen-based arguments. Most of the conversations I've been in as a LeBron fan and like someone who would argue that if you thought LeBron was better than Jordan, people would always say, "Well, Jordan didn't win anything until he got Pippen."
Yeah,
and to me, I guess because I haven't poured my life and passion into basketball. That I can understand Scottie and to a degree Luke Longley and Horace Grant. I can understand like, hey, I put my passion into this sport.
I mean,
and like you said,
record
something they besmirch me or whatever the case may be. But in the same sense, it's like I don't know. I cannot recall. Maybe I got to rewatch The Last Dance. I don't recall that many statements.
No, I don't think it was a lot. I mean, Scott Burrell is the one that got the, that.
I just don't know if it's enough.
That got the machete
to get a tour.
Right. Now I don't know, man. Like I said, you got people out here speaking on your name. Somebody probably out here gassing Scottie up. Like Scottie full of that yak, and somebody's like, "Yo, you know that man ain't win without you." And Scottie like, "Yeah, you right, yo. Like I don't know what that dude talking about, man."
That's a very similar conversation that you and I had earlier about we talk about Eric Bieniemy. It's like, and we talk about even with some of these guys that are transferring from different schools and it's like, who's in your corner? Because I'm reading this book. I'm reading this book and it said like, if you're running a business, you might want to hire an enemy because your friends don't have to do anything to impress you. An enemy might use that energy of them not liking you to show you how good they are, like how much better they are than you. So like you might need an antagonist voice. You might need a 2-5 voice out of your 4 friends because any one of Scottie Pippen's friends, any one of Horace Grant's friends, or Luke Longley's friends, it's like, dog, what are you going on a tour for? What information do
Well,
you have that's so bombshell that you got to charge people or drive or fly or do this at all?
Look, at the end of the day, money talks. You know what I mean? Like,
how much money you getting?
I don't know. I don't know
People
the
say
answer to
money
that
talks.
question.
You doing this for $1,200?
I imagine just for the fact that he said the name Michael Jordan, you know, like what was it? You want the free promotion, Jazzo. Everybody got Jazzo album in stores. You know what I mean? Like just saying Michael Jordan's name is going to garner some type of attention. So
we doing this for free.
You know, they ain't.
I mean,
I guess there's a book coming at some point, you know.
Scottie Pippen wrote a book. It came out last year. What's it called?
I remember that. I do remember
what's
that.
It called?
That's what he said he was better than Jordan and all that.
Cool. What's the book called?
I have no idea.
What's the book cover look like?
You know, I imagine it has a very.
Can you get it on Audible? Can you get it on Audible? Can you get it at Barnes & Noble?
Shout out to Audible, by the way. The Sixth Man by Andre Iguodala. Check out that book. One of the best reads I've had in the last couple of years. You know, shout out to El Residente of The Pursuit of Forever, you know, giving us the $40 million slave. You know, I finally read that. I read it all yesterday, all 9 hours of it on Audible. You know, so like obviously I was bored a little bit at work, but you know, I listened to it yesterday. Great book, great insight, great stories, you know. But yeah, Scottie Pippen, I imagine the cover has a very big nose, and that's all I got.
All right, real quick. So I'm watching a Brooklyn, Minnesota game, and Brooklyn's down 15. Mike Conley went to shoot a 3. I don't know if the clock has stopped. I'm watching on mute. And Dennis Schroeder ran up and hit him like with a double elbow, forearm situation to his chest while he's shooting. That happened probably because we're at an hour and 1 minute. It probably happened at the 55-minute mark. They're still reviewing it.
What is there to review?
I have no idea. They've been reviewing it. They've been reviewing it for like at least 7 minutes at this point.
You know what? I think out of the spirit of integrity, I think I owe Scottie Pippen a download. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get on Audible once we get on here. I'm going to download his book, and I'm going to check it out. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to give that man the attention that he wants, pause, you know, and all that if we need to do that. But, you know.
That's all it is. And, like, I was talking about this with my barber the other day. It was like, my personality is if I went to a function, kid's birthday party, an adult function, whatever it is, if I walk into the room, I'm perfectly good having a conversation with like 3 or 4 people in like a kind of a locked in area of the party. And that's good enough because then when those people ship out, somebody else will come through or I walk to a different part and I'll have a different conversation. And I can live with that. And like not everybody at the party doesn't need to know who I am, where I'm from, my story, or hear my voice. Some people feel like they got to be the center of the room. I don't think Jordan operated that way. I think Jordan just knew I'm very, 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 very good at this sport. I am, for a long time, very close to being one of a kind in the sport of basketball on a world scale, where he didn't have to say X, Y, and Z. Even now, when he talks about the GOAT conversation, he rarely mentions him. He talks about his teammates. He even
said that I don't have. He even said it like I don't win 6 championships without Scottie Pippen. He said that.
Yeah, but it's like Scottie wants something.
He wants the same level of notoriety that Jordan gets because he was the Batman. You know, like when we talk about certain teams, we say Kobe and Shaq. We say the Twin Towers in San Antonio. We say Kareem and Magic. You know, we say, even though they didn't win a title, we say Penny and Shaq. You know, like so on and so forth. Like we there's always a double marquee. There's a double marquee.
The J comes before P, so Jordan and Pippen.
You know, but we don't say that.
Michael and Scottie.
We don't say that, though. We say Jordan. Or we just say the Bulls. We don't say like somebody in an argument might say Scottie Pippen, XYZ, he did this, blah, 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 blah. But in a normal, everyday conversation, we say Jordan is 6-0 in the finals, even though Pippen is too. You know what I mean? We say we don't say the Bulls are 6-0 in the finals. You might say the Bulls have 6 championships, but you make it a point to say that, or if you're a supporter and all that, you make it a point to say Michael Jordan is 6-0 in the finals, no game 7.
But to act as if Jordan's impact, flair, everything about him in that time frame from the 80s to 2000, if you're sitting around here thinking you had the same kind of impact on the sport you both playing as him, you're delusional. On the court, yes, you guys have the same results, and your skill set on the court helped him garner 6 championships. But you have no one in sports has done what Jordan has done off the court without even trying to do it. That's the thing. Jordan was, if you see Jordan now, he's in a booth quietly. He doesn't do a lot of these interviews. He is just Jordan. He has a motorcycle team, for God's sakes. He didn't even go out and do like the typical thing and try to put his money into football. He bought the Charlotte Hornets. And it's like, he didn't try to associate himself with the Bulls so you realize how relevant he is. He didn't do any of that. He just kept selling his shoes, kept counting his money, kept doing his thing. He rarely is out here. I don't know if he wrote a book.
But see, but Scottie didn't have that, because you got, what, Allen Iverson, had shoes. Charles Barkley had the shoes. Ewing had some shoes. Master P had the ugly sneakers. Everybody had
Scottie Pippen. If Scottie Pippen was smart, he would have stuck with the ESPN gig, and he would follow Charles Barkley's path. Because Barkley played in that same shadow as Jordan, not as close, but that shadow did loom and cast over the entire league.
He lost to Jordan in the finals.
All these other guys have found ways to keep themselves relevant in basketball, because I'm pretty sure, as far as a basketball analyst and a basketball player and speaking about basketball, he would probably do an outstanding job.
Yeah, I would love to see him speak about Kawhi.
The problem is he's so concerned with the fact that no one's talking about him versus just talking about what he knows. You have to know you didn't have the same impact on basketball as Jordan did. Like, even when I saw the thing we said, he was like, "Oh, the phone posit was for me." They just things happen, and then Penny got it. That's another thing. Is like, you let that go.
Yeah, you had them ugly ass shoes with the big ass letters on them. Like, look, man. Like, and I'm a big Scottie Pippen fan. You know what I mean? Like, literally, he's probably a top 4 or 5 favorite player of mine ever. You know what I mean? But I can't respect any of this.
Jason Tatum is the evolution of Scottie Pippen, as far as like that 6'7", 6'8" long ball handler that can defend and score.
Paul George. I mean, he's a little taller, but
yeah, he crawls so the rest of these guys can walk. If he rested on that, if that's the thing he clamored, if that's
the problem. That's the problem.
Wants to be this other thing that he's not. Like, you are not Jordan.
But I think you just nailed it. I think you just nailed the problem. There's all these Scottie Pippens, but there's only been one potential other Jordan. I think that's the problem. Because, that's great.
Kobe's probably the closest thing to Jordan that
because like what? Like Nas, name a rapper that I ain't influenced. Like, Pippen can say that in some respects. But the evolution of Jordan was Kobe, another dude that a lot of people put in their top 5. You know what I mean? Versus when you got Paul George. You know what I mean? Like, or you know what I mean? Like the people that emulate Pippen aren't in those conversations. And then we had all these conversations, dumb TV, of course, all over ESPN. You know, who's the Batman, who's the Robin. You know, like everybody wants to be Jordan, who wants to be Pippen. And, you know, the game might be better if there were more Pippens.
Tracy McGrady left Toronto in part because he didn't want to be Robin to Vince Carter's Batman.
And never won a playoff series in his life.
Never won a playoff series. They probably would have won a couple. I don't know if they would have won rings, but they definitely
got to the finals. So, I mean, Vince Carter, what? The year that AI made it to the finals, they had that classic series going back and forth, dropping 50 and everything. Like,
now,
they could have been in the cars.
Yeah. But that's the thing, because everyone made it seem like being the second best player on the greatest team is not like Klay Thompson is not out here like, man, I wish I could be Steph. He's not running the baseline that much.
You know who wish they had
He's taking one dribble and he's pulling up.
You know who wish they had Klay Thompson? Back when Dame Lillard wished he had a Klay Thompson. You know what I mean? Like,
I thought he had one with McCollum.
Nah, they were both like the same size. They were both like, nah, that doesn't work. But like imagine like 2 years from now, Jamal Murray's like, yeah, I can't play with this Jokic dude, man. Like,
he's taking all the shine.
Yeah, like the only other situation that I could think of, it's not even at this level. Yeah, that it is not at this level because they only won one championship and it felt. But like maybe 20 years from now, Kyrie comes out about that year in Cleveland or whatever. Like, you know, that would be like.
But that's the thing. Kyrie made it clear after that he didn't want to do it. He didn't sit there for 6 championships, win them all, get all this acclaim, ride that out for 20 years, and then when the documentary comes out, it's like, oh, that's the difference. Kyrie let you know after the one chip, and then they went back to the finals in 2017. He's like, listen, maybe prematurely, maybe immaturely, but at least it was honestly like, I don't want to play in this guy's shadow. We all thought it was a bad move.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. Scottie took that, you know, he was a leader on that Portland team that went to the Western Finals, got screwed
and
by
Scottie felt that way about Jordan because by the time they got that third chip, by the time what was that? Was that the Phoenix series or the Sonics one? When did he get his third ring?
The third one was because it went Lakers, Suns,
Sonic, or Portland.
No, Lakers, Portland. Then the other one I just said that
Phoenix.
I can't remember. Phoenix, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Phoenix was the third one.
He could have got his 3 rings, and he could have left after that.
Yeah, and then it went Sonics, Utah.
When Jordan retires, he could have been like, all right, I'm going to lead us to a championship. And then when he came back, he's like, you know what? I'm out. I don't want to ride this guy's coat. I want to show people. But he didn't.
Then he tried to form the super team.
He signed a ridiculous contract. He stayed in Chicago. Oh, and honestly, he got paid more money by Chicago than Jordan did. That's another tidbit for information. And then he stayed for 3 more rings. So you were in his shadow the entire time. World basketball was all looking up at the mountaintop of Michael Jordan.
You were on the dream team.
From Dirk Nowitzki when he was growing up as a kid, to Tony Kukoc when they shut him down in the Olympics, to all these guys from Lithuania that were taking pictures with Jordan, and all the fans in Barcelona that were screaming and crying and passing out like he was Michael Jackson. Everybody lived in the what is it from the line from the Knight's Tale? Like, we walk in the garden of his turbulence. Like, everybody did that with Jordan. And he was one of them. So for him to come out now and make it seem like it was this overwhelming burden that he needs to attach himself to Luke Longley and Horace Grant, it just seems, I don't know, it just
like, things would be real interesting if he had won that title in Portland. That things would have been a little interesting because at least he could say, I won a title that I might. Yeah, like, you know, he could say that, and it's not like the Robert Horry set. You know, he could say that. You know, but as it is, I just think.
But if he would have got 7, Jordan would have played until about 2005.
But
because Jordan was going to get 8. There's no way Scottie Pippen was going to get 7 and Jordan not going to get 8.
But at this point, you know, Scottie's out for a cash grab. Horace Grant just want to be remembered, and Luke Longley just trying to remind people that he exists. That's all this is.
And sometimes I feel like that when I'm at work, when I'm yelling at people like, listen, man, listen to the retired senior NCO. Let me give you some tips. In the same sense, I don't go to commander's call and sit on stage and say, hey, let me give you advice that I learned back in 2000. I have little conversations here and there. It's just, I get that they want to get, but like it's been 4 years. And once again, the basis of my discussion is like, I don't know what was said that was so bad that they need to clear the air.
See, I'm gonna have to watch The Last Dance again. I've only watched it the one time, like when it was originally in syndication. I don't even know if we use that word anymore, but that was the only time I watched it.
I watched it less than I watched it last year because I used to play it in the background.
Right, when we were recording, yeah.
When we first started.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch it until early 2023, late 2022. So I just watched it, and I still don't recall anything where I recall like it was one clip. I think they either met at half court, either it was the start of the game or it was like before the game. Like Horace Grant was in his Magic uniform, and I think Scottie and Jordan were just like on the floor, and Jordan was saying some kind of narration over that particular. But even then, it was like, oh, I forgot that he went to the Magic because the whole documentary was like a refresher on the basketball that was being played in our younger years. So I didn't think to be like, oh, where's the beef? Because now I think beef sells. Like we talk about how we move, get it off my chest up to the front so people can hear it. And maybe we say something that really bothered us is kind of controversial and we'll run with that. But because that's what people want to hear. But we want to hear from people that aren't fabricating the controversy. Right. So unless you're really gonna drop a gem, like
and to be fair, Michael Jordan's son is about to marry Scottie Pippen.
They broke up. They broke up. They just broke up.
Okay. Well,
so maybe he mad. Maybe he mad. Now you got to pick up the alimony tab again because you lose alimony when you get remarried.
And there you go, folks. So it's all about the money. It comes full circle. It comes full circle. But yo,
that's funny.
Programming note. We are going to be back next week on our regular schedule on Monday and Thursday. The week after, and I'll remind you again, only Monday. The week after, only Monday. So, but yo, this is Sports Reports as Ordered. He is Mr. Logical.
True.
I am 2-5. You know what I'm saying? Kiss the babies goodnight. Like, subscribe, share, do all the things. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook.
Click the bell so you get the notification.
All that stuff like that. And tell grandma good night for us too. You know what I'm saying? We'll see you Monday. Love ya. Peace.